Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as we ask, are Manchester United genius or crazy in their approach to this transfer window? Baleba, still a player United are going to move on, and Michael Carrick could be involved in transfers for the summer as soon as March. Is this something you're on board with, or is this something you think the board are losing it with? Because I tell you what, these are big decisions and they're not going to go away. Also, a lot more to get through in the show this today. I nearly said this morning because I haven't been on the show, so this is quite a few. I mean, we started the day with Manchester City, our favourites to sign Elliot Anderson. Liverpool, our favourites to sign Anthony Gordon. We had Ben Jacobs on at 2 o'clock with Beth. There's a lot to unpick from that. Man United are going to give Maguire a new contract, a few other interesting bits as well. But, you know, part of me thinks we're ending the day with Goldbridge, which is always a good thing, but we're ending the day with you, which is even better. But we're also ending the... Is it coincidence that this morning, the midfielder that United have been using, I would say, since September as the number one priority, David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, Man United's number one priority is Elliot Anderson. And we start the day off with Manchester City are massive favourites to sign him. Oh, we like Baleba. We like Baleba. It's like pivoting from Margot Robbie to bloody Pat Butcher, isn't it, in my opinion? But I do think that it's getting to the point now where to play devil's advocate, and this is what Ben Jacobs had to say, by the way, if you didn't hear it. Carlos Baleba's price is yet to be set, with Brighton keeping the valuation close to their chest as usual. Man United are not concerned by his form, with his age a key factor and belief that his quality would allow him to have a greater impact in their squad than at Brighton. I have to pose the question, is this just something we're all missing? Are we just mere mortals and the board of Manchester United are superpowers? Because I'm getting to the point now where I just can't keep saying, why are we going after a player that has been predominantly shit for most of the season? I mean, are we actually just missing something here? Is there some level of genius in the board that we're missing? Because maybe we sign Baleba and maybe he turns into a great player. Maybe they're right about that. Also, we'll talk about this Carrick, why he's been appointed as head coach and not interim until the summer so that he can get involved in transfers and stuff. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Because again, I think there's a good and bad side to that. But I want to stick with Baleba to start off with, because I think that I've said to you for a long time, and don't forget, it's an 8 o'clock show, so anything from the day or the week that you want to talk about, let me know. It is your show on an 8 o'clock show. We like to get into your debates, and we've had some good ones this week. But I think in relation to Baleba, I can't be, like, I've had my say. I think I've seen him play. I've had my say. My summary of Baleba is this. A year ago, I thought he was a very exciting talent. And in the summer when we went for him, I was very excited. However, an exciting talent is like Garnacho. Garnacho was an exciting talent, and then he was shit. And the warning signs were that he was shit last year. And Chelsea are now seeing his shit. So does it not work with Baleba because we don't like Garnacho? I mean, Baleba was very good last year, and he's been very bad this year. And I think when United are going, we're not bothered about how he's playing, and also almost blaming Brighton by going... they believe his quality would allow him to have a greater impact in a Man United team than a Brighton team. So what we're saying now is the team you're playing dictates how you perform. I mean, what a bloody cop-out. You could put Roy Keane in an Accrington Stanley shirt and he'd still be a bloody hard-working top-class midfielder. So I don't buy into that. Oh, we're not bothered about how he's performing because we think in a Man United shirt he'll perform better. What, where the pressure's even bigger? Where the scrutiny's even bigger? I mean... I don't think there's any excuse to be playing bad in a Brighton shirt. I mean, when I look at Elliot Anderson, and I look at Adam Wharton, and I look at Angelo Stiller, I actually look at those three players, one at Stuttgart, one at Forest, and one at Crystal Palace, and I think, actually, how would they perform in a bigger shirt? I don't think, oh, they're average there, so they'll be brilliant at Arsenal. I think the opposite, actually. I think if you're average at Brighton, I don't think you're suddenly going to be brilliant at Man United. I think... if you're brilliant at Brighton, can you replicate that at Manchester United? So, look, I have to say at this point, because, and hence it's in the title, is it genius or is it insane? Because they are absolutely dead set on this, aren't they? It's just been a message we've had all season that they don't care how he plays, they've scouted him, and they believe he's a top player. And look, maybe even I'm starting to think, am I getting this wrong? am I missing something here? Is he going to be a brilliant player at Manchester United? Because for me, and I'm a lot older than a lot of you, when I see a player underperforming for a whole year, I don't think, ooh, put a red shirt on and they'll be absolutely fine. I think that's a massive, massive red flag. And also, it worries me that Brighton haven't set the price yet. It's almost like, and I'm joking a little bit, it's almost like we've got to sign him. It's almost like last summer we signed something with Brighton to say, we'll leave it for now, but we'll have him next year. It's almost like we signed something with Brighton to say, we're obligated to buy him. Because it just feels weird how, like, the price is even being kept quiet and we're still in even though he's playing rubbish. It's almost like we've signed something, we have to sign him. I don't know. Bit weird. The Baleba thing worries me, says Rory. Thanks for the very first super chat of the night. He says, maybe 2 years ago was a freak season and this season is par. Bit like Me Too all those years ago. Look, I think that can be the case, certainly. Eyes are looking very green today, Mark. Lovely shirt. It probably is the shirt doing it, watching YouTube. Get well soon, Harry Amas. Unfortunate injury, says Jacob. Yep, I think we all share in that as well. And Mike JW is in the house. Hope you're doing well, Mike. He says, if we are in for Baleba, it's an indictment of poor judgment by Wilcox. He's been poor all season. I don't want him. We may not get the player we want, but you go for the best you can, says Mike. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about this Anderson story. It was very interesting this morning. Obviously, Terry was on the show, but I was messaging him because I was actually driving. I wasn't driving. I was a passenger, but I was in a car, so technically I was being driven. And I said to him, he was like, "Oh, I don't know whether I believe that story." I went, "Trust me, bro." I didn't say that. I said, "Trust me, Terry. Man City are massive favourites to sign Anderson." And he said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because I know. I've been talking about it for weeks on the United stand, that Elliot Anderson to Man City is more advanced than people think. They have held conversations with him. They were considering going for him in January. So this whole Man United want Elliot Anderson stuff, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but at this stage it feels like a massive smokescreen. So Baleba becomes the high-profile signing, doesn't it? I hope you're well and had a good day, Mark. Thank you very much, says Daniel from Daniel Thompson. Appreciate that. And Keel Robinson, the legend, is in the house. He says, has Baleba had more than one good or bad season? Says Keel. I think he had a decent season last year. He was okay the season before, and I think this season has been terrible, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, terrible, certainly. Okay. Let's have a look at. I wanted to bring this in. Like this is probably more. I think this one's probably the one I wanted to get into. Really, I just think with Baleba, I'm starting to go, have we all got this wrong? Is there some level of genius from Manchester United? That's what I'm starting to think. But this one, I might have a crazy take on this. So this was from Ben Jacobs as well, and this stood out to me today. Man United appointed Michael Carrick as head coach rather than interim, so he could be involved in all aspects of the club. However, and I'll come back to that one. However, he is not currently putting forward transfer targets for the summer and has not been told he is under consideration for the permanent role. However, by mid-March or early April, United expect to have a clearer idea of whether Carrick will be a genuine candidate or not, and therefore he could be involved in transfer conversations. Now, first and foremost, I wasn't aware of this, and I don't really understand what difference it makes. So, Manchester United appointed Carrick as head coach rather than interim head coach. What's the bloody difference? I've never heard such shit in all my life. What difference does it make if he's head coach or interim coach? If he's the only thing, it made me think, well, if he's head coach, are you sacking him in the summer then? Because head coach makes it sound like it's permanent, and interim makes it sound like it's till the summer. And you've said it's till the summer, so isn't that an interim? And who appoints an interim coach and then doesn't let them have a say on your youth players and coaching and everything like that? So I don't really know what that one means. Maybe it's lost in translation. But the second part of it, I think this is where we went wrong with Rangnick. And I might be in the minority here. I don't know. We'll see what you say. I personally think in the March international break, you've got to be moving on your targets for the summer. You have to. It's proven through history. You have to be moving on your targets in March. That March international break is so important for transfers. So if in the March international break, we aren't listening to Michael Carrick, well, we won't be listening to the new manager because we don't know who it is. So we'll basically just be listening to Jason Wilcox and Faval and Barada and Sir Jim. I would actually like Michael Carrick to be involved in those conversations. I think this is where we went wrong with Rangnick, because Rangnick knew he was an interim, probably didn't expect to be gone altogether. I think he thought he might be the director of football. But Ralph Rangnick mentioned some really interesting players. Julian Alvarez, Vardial, there were others. He mentioned some really interesting players that ended up going to other clubs in the Premier League and doing really, really well. So I think that I would actually quite like Michael Carrick to be involved in the transfer conversations in March, because if he isn't, the day-to-day running of that squad is non-existent on the board. Like, Wilcox doesn't coach the team as much as he'd like to. Barada certainly doesn't, and Sir Jim Radcliffe is barely in Manchester. So you've got a board sat there very withdrawn from reality. Ruben Amorim's not going to come back for a week in Manchester and give his thoughts, and they're not going to listen to him anyway. So if you don't have Michael Carrick in the room, I don't think it means he has to get the permanent job. I just think Michael Carrick needs to be in the room, and probably now, and that's my controversial statement. Michael Carrick probably needs to be involved now in transfer decisions, because I'm not saying you should listen to Michael Carrick when he says go and buy Tammy Abraham from Villa and pay £300 million. I'm saying listen to Michael Carrick in relation to, should we be keeping Harry Maguire? Should we be buying a right back? What do you think about the left back? What do you think about the midfield? Where do you think the weaknesses are in the squad? Where do you think we can get by? I'm not saying Michael Carrick's advice is going to be the right advice. I might not like what he says, but I certainly think if you're not listening to Michael Carrick in March, or even now, that is a really important period. Now to April is the time where if you want Elliot Anderson, you've got to be fucking talking to him. And the only people who are going to make, and this is really important, whoever we're talking to, and we must be talking to players, the only opinion in the room is Wilcox, Faval and Barada. Well, they're nowhere near the squad. They're nowhere near the training. They're nowhere near what's going on. So I'm not saying Michael Carrick should get the job, but I would like him to be involved. I would like him to be sat there in the room with a say, because look at what we did with Ralph Rangnick. He had that whole season with that team. He spoke about open heart surgery. He spoke about what was needed. He put players forward and they went, yeah, you're fired because you told the truth. Erik ten Hag's coming in now and he starts in the middle of May. He's got nothing to do with this team, but we're listening to him and his list. I mean, we went and bought players for Erik ten Hag. He'd never even coached the team. He'd never even trained the team. When you look back on that, and even I missed it, when you look back on it, Ralph Rangnick had 6 months with that team, analysing it, talking about open heart surgery, talking about players they needed. They got rid of him. They didn't listen to him. They brought in Ten Hag, who hadn't even coached the team, and started buying players for him. And I think that's, to me, is incredible. So, yeah, very, very, very interesting indeed. Do you think? So let me know your thoughts on that. What about giving him the job in March? No. I think that if Ben Jacobs is correct, I'm more than happy with the scenario whereby we keep it till the end of the season with Carrick. I mean, I think the reason Ben Jacobs is saying by the end of March, beginning of April, which is the international break, Man United will have a clearer idea about whether they're moving Carrick on or they're going to make him a candidate. I think that's because by that time, the league table still won't quite be right. I mean, if you think about between now and the end of March, let me have a look at this. I mean, I personally don't think by the end of March you can say he's a candidate or not, because the only games we'll have played are Everton away, Palace at home, Newcastle away, Villa at home, and Bournemouth away. I think it might be a little bit unfair to give it to Carrick in relation to that point, because I think it's hard to say. Well, it's hard to even. What I'm saying is, what if we lose to Everton? We lose to Newcastle and we draw with Bournemouth and we only win 2 of the next 5. I think people are driven by results and would go, well, he can't take the job. I would still defend Carrick and go, are we seriously saying he can't have the job because these players don't get results? The flip side is, if we win the next 5, are we seriously saying he should get the job because he's won 5 games? Personally, I think at the end of May, see where we are, and if he's done well, make him a candidate, and if he's done badly, don't make him a candidate. I don't think you need to make a decision in March. I think society is just so locked in on making decisions, and I don't think we need to make a decision that quickly. I really don't. But I do think I would like Michael Carrick to be involved in transfer conversations, because when you look at the Harry Maguire latest, and look, it's not really breaking news from what Ben Jacobs said, because it was said by Chris Wheeler as well a couple of days ago on the channel. But the feeling is around Harry Maguire that he's expected, Manchester United are leaning towards keeping him. Finances should not be an issue, as Maguire is keen to remain at the club. So it looks like, Harry Maguire is willing to take the pay cut, and Man United want to keep him. Now, personally, I think it's the wrong thing to do. However, I'm not massively opposed to it. I think that it's, but I think Michael Carrick should have a say on that. And if he has had a say on that, then they're doing the right thing, because I want somebody. I don't want the Rangnick. I think the Rangnick situation was just a waste of an interim coach who was actually on the rock face with these players. Would extending his internship for 1 year be crazy, says Jacob? Yeah. Well, it would do, because, for the simple reason, you can never have a manager in the last year of their contract. Players don't like it. It destabilises them. So, yeah, I don't think we could do that. I think you either give Carrick a 3-year deal or you move him on. Dino says, do you think Baleba's performance this season is due to his head's been turned in the summer and Brighton promised a move and they broke that promise and he lost his confidence because of it? It might be, Dino, and thank you very much for your super chat. Very generous. Look, we can be sympathetic to Baleba's situation. Something clearly has gone wrong. Now, something might be going wrong in his private life. Something might be going wrong because he didn't get his dream move. But from our point of view, if I'm being completely honest and harsh, is that not the warning sign we wouldn't have got if Brighton had let him go? Imagine if Brighton had let him go for 70 million or 60 million and we'd got the performances of him this season in a red shirt. He'd be a flop. If he'd played like he has for Brighton this year as a £60 million signing for Man United, he'd be an absolute flop. So I think that whether he's struggling because he didn't get his dream move, unfortunately, I think that has exposed his mentality. If you think about Ronaldo wanted to go to Real Madrid the year before he actually went. I forget the comment, but were we not described as prisoners or some? There was some comment, wasn't there? I don't know whether it was from Real Madrid or something. Somebody will be old enough in the chat to remember that Ronaldo wanted to go to Real Madrid the year before we let him, and there was some comment made about him being held prisoner or something like that. We won the league. He might have won the Ballon d'Or that year, but he was bloody brilliant. And he didn't get his dream move to Real Madrid. So, personally, I think if you don't get your move, you double down. Because you don't want to miss your opportunity. You want to be like, well, they better still want me next year. So, I think that's an important point as well. The decision has already been made for Carrick, going to be another yes man, says Joe. Look, I could sit here on Carrick and say, not literally on him, I'm sitting on a chair, but I could literally sit here and say, of course they're going to give Carrick the job. They're lying to us again. They're pretending that they don't, that they're not going to go for him, but it's very obvious they're going to go for him. Who are the alternatives? They're all pretty shit. Glasner, Iriola, De Zerbi, they just don't give you any guaranteed success. And as Ange said, I'll read it in a minute, what Ange said about the next Man United manager, and he's absolutely, in fact, I'll do it now. This is what Ange said. Ange Postecoglou on the overlap basically said this. My view is that Man United is the hardest job in world football. The scrutiny that the club has and the spotlight it's constantly under, beholden to the history it has, it's going to take a unique individual to be able to overcome it. And look, I don't think Ange Postecoglou is saying anything that we wouldn't say at all. I think it's completely and utterly obvious that it's a very difficult job. But do you think, after these words, that it's the hardest job in the world and you're under so much pressure, it takes a unique individual to overcome it? Do you think that unique individual is De Zerbi or Iriola or Glasner? No, I don't think it is. So I think that I can't see an alternative out there at the moment. And Carrick will be cheap. he will be another yes man because he'll be indebted to getting the job. He's already got a coaching staff with him that's cheap, with Holland and Woodgate and Evans. And they can probably get away with running the club the way they want to, which is what Wilcox wants to do as well. So, look, I could sit here and say it's very likely he's going to get the job. But on the other hand, I could say Ineos are clinging on by their fingernails and they're running the footballing side really badly. There is the Glazers here as well. If they get this wrong, it's probably curtains, isn't it? Suraj says, Carrick, Ten Hag, Amorim are data points. If 3 out of 5 have said we need a left-back, you should buy. Law of large numbers. Carrick is a recent data point with high value, says Suraj. Thank you very much. Suraj also says, do you think having Carrick will pull big players, especially when we are managing weekly wages, unless a player wants to play for United? I think that's a good point. I mean, I don't really want to get locked in on the manager conversation, but it is an 8 o'clock show and you have made a good point. I think that I was actually thinking about this today. The pull of Carrick comparable to the pull of an Ancelotti or a Enrique or someone like that. I think it is tough to say what the pull will be. If you're going for De Zerbi or you're going for Iriola, is Carrick's pull any different? I mean, it depends what pull you... If it's Elliot Anderson, he might be more willing and interested in signing for Michael Carrick than he is more interested than signing for Iriola or De Zerbi, for the simple reason that Michael Carrick was a midfielder at Manchester United and he might feel he can learn more. However, if you have a Pochettino or an Enrique or a Ancelotti, I think you've got a bigger pull. If I was the owner of Man United, I'd be going for the biggest personality with the best CV because that makes it easier. But I don't really know if we've got that pull. You've got the manager with the pull, but has the club got the pull to get the manager with the pull? There's a lot of pulling going on the show tonight, isn't there? But yeah, look, if you've got a manager like Luis Enrique, the pull is big. Same with Pep. Same with Klopp. But has Man United got the pull to get the manager with the pull? My dad and I have our daily son and dad hangout, so you'll be quiet about my dad not being punctual. You all peasants, he's royalty. Sebby out, says Seb Goldbridge. The words genius and Ineos do not belong together, says Mike JW. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Thanks for super chat. Gabrielle says, an inconsistent team do not need inconsistent players. Simple as that, says Gabrielle. And Emily Derry says, evening Emily, stating that form and performance doesn't matter, that they will never move they will move regardless, sends a really bad message both to current players and potential signings. It advertises that standards don't matter. I think this is a great point, and you probably put it far blunter than me. If United's continued message from the director of football is, we don't care about Baleba's performance this season, we believe there's a good player there, that is look, let's be honest, that is a horrendous risk. Horrendous risk. And I think the great point for me is, right, maybe what they're about to do is genius in going for Baleba. And maybe what they're about to do is stupid in relation to signing Baleba. But do Man United strike you as a club that needs to take risk at the moment? Are we a football club that needs to be taking risks right now? No. We need to be taking sure things. So imagine we spend a large portion of our budget on Baleba, right? And he flops. There's no sympathy. Because, in fact, in a way, I think people might be expecting it. The pressure might be even higher on him because he's had such a bad season. People might not have the patience with him because he's had a bad season. You know what I mean? If you buy a player and you don't really think you think it's a massive risk, are your eyes... Look at Sesko. I think some people turned on Sesko too soon, but the vast majority, and I did the video on Sesko this morning, which I think was brilliant in highlighting his strengths and his areas of improvement. But if Sesko had had the season Baleba's just had, would we have the patience with him? And I think that's a great point that Emily sort of sparked, is that everybody knows Baleba's a massive risk. If I'm Sir Jim Radcliffe, I'm looking at Jason Wilcox and going, okay, you've cost me £500 million on 2 managers that we've had to sack. And now your big midfielder signing is a player that the fans are going, that's a big risk. you're either a genius or you're an idiot. And that's what I'm saying. It's going to either be genius and he's going to get all the credit for it, or it's going to be insane and everyone's going to go, why did you do that? Personally, I'd be pulling the plug on the deal and going, we're not taking risks. We're just not taking those risks. I'm sorry, we're not doing that deal. Who else wants him? Are Arsenal after Baleba? Are Liverpool after Baleba? No, it's just us there going, yeah, we'll do that. We shouldn't be I don't think we should take that risk. But if they take the risk, it's got to work. Don't you think we need a manager before the transfer window opens? Any manager who's involved in the World Cup will only come to us by the end of July, says Sanchit. As I said, Sanchit, I could be completely cynical and say that United already know who their manager's going to be, because, or you could look at it and go, well, they won't be bothered about bringing Pochettino in after the World Cup because Pochettino is a yes man, and we want to buy all the players anyway. Or they might know who the manager is and they've already had conversations with them about signings. Dan A says, crazy thoughts. If everyone's saying Man City are now favourites to win the league, does that mean we're in a title race as we're only 8 points behind City? I am joking with you now, but you know what? If we'd managed to beat West Ham, no, we were never in a title race. We were never in a title. I mean, look, I would love Man United to win the league. And in any season, I would love Man United to win the league. But if we won the league this season, it would be the weirdest league title I think ever United have ever won. Every title I've seen us win, there's been a large element of deserving to win it. We don't deserve to win the league this year. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at everything. It's like, of course you technically could win the league, but we don't deserve to win the league. We're not a title-winning team. If we won the league this year, it would have to go down as one of the shittest Premier League seasons ever. But I do think it's one of the shittest Premier League seasons ever anyway. I genuinely do. I think everybody's obsession with long throw-ins and corners has really diluted the game to a point where anybody can beat anybody because everybody plays the same way. I think Man City are the only team that's playing different football. If you think about it, everybody is playing the same way at the moment, aren't they? Ewan says, in an ideal world, who would you buy in the summer? Ideal world, I would bring in a backup goalkeeper, which, to be honest, as long as it's not going to bench Le Mans, as long as they're decent, I don't mind who it is. I would bring in a left back. Lewis Hall would be very, very good. I would bring in a right back, and I would like to bring in somebody that's very good going forward at right back. I haven't thought about it because I don't think we'll bring one in. Midfield for me would be Stiller and Anderson in an ideal world. And my left winger would probably be... I mean, I do like Anthony Gordon, and I know I'm in the minority, but I do probably lean towards Ndia a little bit more, if I'm being honest at the moment, because I think that experience is good, and he reminds me a bit of Mbeumo and Cunha in relation to, look, the contrast between someone like an Ndia and a Baleba is that I think Ndia comes in ready to go, whereas, and another great point about Baleba as well, he's not ready to go. In Ben Jacobs, what he said today, he's not ready to go. They're saying, well, we don't really care about how he's playing at the moment because we think he'll be better in a red shirt and he's young. So by our own admission, we're saying we think he'll be a better player in the future. Well, that means he's a nurturer then, isn't it? It's a learner-driver again. Good question, Ewan. The decision has already been made. Thank you very much from Joe. They need 2 midfielders this summer, so if Baleba's price remains high, they may pivot to cheaper alternatives, says Azam. Well, I've seen us be linked with... I've seen us linked with Enmicha at Dortmund, which I think is interesting. There's plenty of midfielders out there. And I think that, you know, there's no... there's no shortage of midfielders, and everyone's a risk. But personally, I think if we're going to buy 2 midfielders, one of them's got to be a signing that everybody goes, that's a good deal. I think if you're going to buy 2 midfielders, your main one's got to be universally, that's a good deal. That's a really good deal. And I think that if Baleba's the main guy, I don't think that's going to be the case, is it? So, look, if you get Anderson and Baleba, I don't think anyone gives a shit. I think they go, Anderson's ready to go, Baleba's a bit of a project. If you get Baleba and Micha, I think everyone goes, shit, you know, if this doesn't work out, we're in problems, you know. If you get Tonali and Baleba, I think people would be okay. It depends. It depends who they are. But I do feel like United are pushing the Baleba story as if he's going to be the main guy, and they believe he's the main guy. So it'd be interesting. Azam said, thank you very much for that. Emily Derry says, personally, I think, let me just see what this shot is for. How many did we get there then? 2. Great Britain 2. I'm watching the curling semi-final here. Should turn it on. 6-5. 2 rounds to go. Women doing well tonight in the Champions League, says Stephen. I'm watching the curling. They need 2 cuts. So thank you very much. Emily Derry's back with a super chat. She says, personally, I think Baleba would be a sword someone falls on. It should be Wilcox. More likely it'll be the next manager. Well, I think, look, obviously I do have a massive sympathy. I want to make this very, very clear. I have a massive sympathy with Baleba. He's a human being. And obviously he missed out on a dream move to Man United in the summer. And maybe that's why he's playing so badly this season. But, you know, the guy behind the bar in my local bar is a lovely guy. But I wouldn't sign him for Man United. And if we're being completely honest, in competitive sport, sympathy and empathy doesn't come into it. Excellence and performance does. I don't want to take risks. I do have sympathy with Baleba, but I don't want to take risks. I want to go for dead cert. So for me, it's avoid it. But what I will say is, if we sign him and he doesn't work out, it's nothing to do with the next manager. Whether it's Michael Carrick or it's Luis Enrique or it's De Zerbi, if Baleba comes in and fails, how can it be the new manager's responsibility when they tried to sign him last year? He's had a bad season this year and they've still gone back for him. That is an Ineos signing. It's not a manager signing. Now, whether we have the intelligence in this fan base to remember that, there's a lot of things we don't remember that we say in the summer that we don't do. I mean, I remember in the summer people were saying, if this goes wrong, we didn't buy a midfielder, it can't be Amorim's fault. And then people hammer him out at Christmas and Wilcox is fine. So I think it's worth remembering that. Mike JW says, honest question here, but is Carrick the only option for Ineos because he's the only one who'll be happy being coach only? I can't see other managers putting up with that, says Mike. Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking to somebody that I absolutely loved Michael Carrick as a player. I think the chances of him being a decent manager, whether it's here or somewhere else, are reasonable because he played in a position that was cultured and intelligent. And you look at other midfielders like Luis Enrique and Pep Guardiola, and I'm not saying he's going to be that good, but it's an area of the pitch where you do need to be quite intelligent. So I'm a fan of Michael Carrick. I just don't think he should get the job as things stand at the moment. But I have heard people saying, bollocks, you know, Carrick's just a Glazerite. He's going to take that job because he wants it, and he's going to basically lap up anything Wilcox or Berardi say to him because he's desperate for the job, and we don't need someone like that. And if he's got the best interests of the club at heart, he shouldn't do that. That's self-serving. But every manager's self-serving, aren't they? So what will be. And Michael Carrick could end up being a victim in a game of the Glazers, or he could end up being a success. Or he might not get the job. An inconsistent team do not need inconsistent players. It's simple as that, says Gabrielle. Again, a good point. I think that in all areas of the pitch, whether it's the manager, the director of football, new signings, or keeping players or selling them, recruitment's really easy. Whether it's keeping Harry Maguire, or signing a left back, or signing Baleba, or keeping Carrick, or sacking Wilcox, all those decisions should be made on how consistently can these people perform and at what level. So if I'm keeping Harry Maguire, I'm like, what level is he going to perform at over the next 2 years, and how much is he going to be available? Now, I would say at 33, his levels are going to drop and his availability is going to drop. is that worth keeping around? In relation to Carrick, is he going to be a manager that can consistently put Man United in the Champions League? It's a question. In relation to Baleba, is he going to come in, perform week in, week out, and improve our midfield? In relation to the left back, is he going to come in and be better than Luke Shaw? And in relation to Wilcox, is he the guy that's going to make the right decisions to make this team better, or is he going to make it worse? And you answer these questions for everybody, whether it's players you're looking to keep, players you're looking to sign, managers you're looking to bring in, or director of football. That should be written on the wall of Barada or Sir Jim Radcliffe's head. Everything I do, does it make us better or does it make us worse? And that's the factor, isn't it? That's the X factor. Dino says, do you worry that with all the noise at United, getting the Glazers out and Radcliffe comments and numerous managerial changes, that it will put off big name signings in the summer because of all the drama? Dino, look, I mean, in a sense, it's quite a boring topic, but we spoke last night about United being on the brink if they don't get Champions League football, and if Bruno goes. So United ain't out of the woods in any way, shape or form. They will always try and project that they are, but they certainly need to put themselves in a position where they project everything's okay. We know there's a lot of things that aren't okay about Man United at the moment, but it's very premature. Look, answer the question very, very clearly. Could Man United have different owners in the next 2 years? They could, but there's got to be somebody willing to buy it, essentially. You're missing a belter. They need a watch along. I've got it on, don't worry, Stephen. And Ankit says, I can't imagine that I am saying this, but Glazers were better than Glinios. In the last 18 months, our team has been managed by 5 different people. No. I've got to say, you know, when you look at Old Trafford, you know the way the stadium roof comes in like that? I don't know whether that was possible, but you know when they built the stadium and the roof is massive and it's like that? I don't know whether it was engineered, whether it was possible, but I always felt that what we were going to do with those stadiums, because of the natural slant on the roof, was build on top. Now it's just a rusty, bloody metal construction site. But that's the Glazers. They bought the club in 2005. Not one bit of stadium renovation has ever been done in 20 years. You look at Anfield and it's the same ground it's always been, but it's ultra modern because they've looked after it. I look at the Glazers and I think Old Trafford clearly could have been built upon and looked after, and now we're going to knock it down and spend £2 billion. Curling is the most underrated sport in the world, says Doug. Daniel Thompson has gifted 2 memberships. You're a legend. Thank you very much. JB says, I think the more Baleba talk, it might happen, so let's not cloud our head worrying. I would focus this season to get top 4. Thank you very much to JB. And since Azam says, since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2019, Man United have spent nearly $2 billion on signings with mixed results, says Azam. Yeah, but you know what? I don't know where you're coming at from that, because if I had £1 for every time I've heard a rival fan say, I'm sure you've had it yourself. Sometimes you might be in conversations with a Liverpool fan or an Arsenal fan or whatever, and you'll go, United need to spend $500 million to compete with Arsenal. You've already spent $2 billion. And then you go to them, well, what would you do? You need to spend money, don't you? Yeah, so what's your point? So I don't know where your angle is, Azam. We have wasted a lot of money since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. But what's the solution to taking Man United back to the top? Because Man City have spent a lot of money and look at what they're doing. Arsenal have spent a lot of money and they're second in the league every year. And I know people are taking the piss out of Arsenal at the moment, but we very rarely get into the Champions League. So I think that those people who criticise how much money we've spent, they're only right in the sense that we've spent the money badly. I think that we essentially have the only way back is to spend money, really. Thank Thank you very much to that. Mike JW's gifted a membership. Thank you very much for that. And Rob's right. He says it's been spent badly on obviously bad decisions. Exactly. Look, if somebody's got... I always find it a quite laughable statement when people go, oh, club's spent £1 billion and bro wants to spend more. And I go, well, what are you calling me bro for? And also, well, what would you do? Anybody I've ever spoken to, United fan or non-United fan, when you say to them, look, we can't qualify for the Champions League every year. We can't get anywhere near competing for a Premier League title. We're Manchester United. Whatever you think about us, Man United's aim should be to compete for the title every year. We can't get anywhere near one. You're laughing at us saying we need to spend more money. So tell us, how do you win the league without spending money? And if you can tell us that, I think there's a lot of other clubs that would love to know that as well. So I think it is, I think it is interesting in that sense. Because I think we have to spend money. It's like the wage bill, isn't it? Like, there seems to be certain people who get very excited about our wage bill coming down. It's incredible. It's like a hungry person. It's like being hungry and looking in the fridge and going, yes, the food's getting less and less. No, we need to buy more food if you're hungry. And we need the best players if we want to be the best team. And the best players cost money. The problem we've had for many years is that we've just bought badly. Harry Maguire cost £80 million and we gave him 190 grand a week 6 years ago. Now, Harry's done a good job at United, but £80 million 6 years ago is probably £100 million now. It was a ridiculous amount of money. So even the players that have done okay, you would say that it's a lot of money, certainly. All goes back to getting better owners, says Airbus. Of course it does. Right, let me have a look what else is going on here, because there was a couple of other bits I wanted to bring into the show. Terry spoke about DeMarco this morning. It was interesting what Ben Jacobs said about the Mané story as well. Did you see that? He basically said that Mané at Wolves is not a priority target for Manchester United, but Anthony Gordon has been discussed internally. If Newcastle miss out on the Champions League, a major sale could be considered in the summer to raise funds. So that Mané story that's been floating around that a lot of people have led on is apparently a load of bollocks. But Anthony Gordon is still consideration. I mean, I watched that Mané against Wolves last night. I've seen him a couple of times. There's no doubt he's a decent player, Mané, but I also think that he's I think he's a player that's tough to. Again, he's a prospect, isn't he? I'm not saying, well, it doesn't look like we're in for him anyway, but I think it's, he's a tough player to get excited about. But then we've been linked to Kroupi as well, which is interesting. What else did he have to say? Manchester United and several other clubs are monitoring Kroupi ahead of the summer window. No approaches have been made yet, but his recent agent change suggests he could be preparing for a summer move. Another player from Bournemouth. Another teenager as well, and also was talking about Xerxes more likely to leave Man United this summer, with the club open to a sale. United will aim to avoid making a loss while there is United will aim to avoid making a loss while there is interest from Serie A, and Galatasaray have also shown interest as well. Yeah, well, look, I think Xerxes will go in the summer, won't he? Anderson has done jack shit all season, 4th from bottom of the league. Yes, that's your star player, fool, says Mike. Should I bother sitting Mike down? Get your cushions ready, Mike. So Anderson's done shit all this season, and that's your star player, is it? I think Mike might have a picture of Baleba on his wall and a big box of tissues. So Anderson's done shit all this season. He's a starting player for England. Manchester City want him, and apparently he's a bag of shit, according to Mike. Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely. Stephen says, Sir Alex didn't achieve what he did by not spending. No team could compete with us in the market back then. I think sometimes people see spending money as a bad thing, but ultimately you only spend money because that's the way to get better players. Ultimately, you come into a team and they're not very good. So you try to get better players, and the way to do that is through better money, isn't it? That's how you do it. Okay, I'm going to go and watch the end of this curling because it's in the last end, and it's going to be very interesting, this last end. So I'm going to go and watch that. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. The preview was going to be tonight, but it's back tomorrow. Well, it'll be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock because obviously we're playing on Monday. So I was sort of like, do we keep the preview on a Thursday? And then I thought, we're not playing till bloody Monday night, are we? So I thought, no, let's put it back to Friday because I'm not doing the Bundesliga tomorrow night. So we have got an 8 o'clock show. So bonus Friday night preview because the press conference is tomorrow anyway. So I wanted to do it after anyway. So previews tomorrow night. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay safe, take care, and I will speak to you on the next one. Thank you very much.